Have you ever wondered why some people seem to control every situation, while others constantly feel drained, confused, and uncertain about their own choices? It's not always about intelligence or strength. Often, it's about awareness, the ability to see through invisible strings that pull your emotions, your time, and your energy. Manipulation doesn't always scream in your face. It whispers. It hides behind kindness, logic, or authority. It makes you doubt yourself until you start believing that your worth depends on someone else's approval. But here's the truth. Once you recognize manipulation, it loses its power. Awareness is freedom. And freedom starts when you decide to see clearly, when you stop giving your peace away to people who thrive on your confusion. Because manipulation isn't just about control. It's about taking away your voice, your certainty, and your direction. It feeds on your hesitation. It grows every time you say yes when your soul screams no. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've felt that quiet discomfort in your gut, that small voice telling you something isn't right, but you ignored it just to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to be liked. You told yourself it was no big deal, but deep down, you knew. And every time you stayed silent, you lost a little more of yourself, until one day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. That's what manipulation does. It doesn't take you all at once. It steals you piece by piece. Yet, this is where transformation begins. Because once you become aware, you can no longer be controlled. Awareness rebuilds your confidence, your inner peace, your ability to say no without guilt and yes without fear. You start to see patterns. How people use guilt to twist your emotions, flattery to lower your guard, or authority to silence your truth. But instead of falling into their traps, you rise above them. You stand firm in your values. You protect your energy. The path to strength is not about fighting others. It's about mastering yourself, your reactions, your boundaries, your awareness. Manipulators lose their power the moment you stop seeking their approval. They fade the moment you choose self-respect over acceptance. The courage to walk away, to stay grounded, to trust your intuition, that's what sets you free. And that freedom feels different. It's quiet but powerful. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who twist your words. You no longer chase validation from those who never saw your worth. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Because once you've tasted emotional freedom, you can never go back to being controlled. This is what this journey is about. Reclaiming your clarity, your strength, and your truth. In this video, you'll discover 16 powerful secrets taught by Heng, each one a tool to help you rise above manipulation and see through the illusions that cloud your judgment. If you've ever felt lost, unsure, or taken advantage of, stay until the end. You will not just learn how to avoid manipulation. You'll learn how to transform your mind, protect your heart, and walk through life with unshakable peace. Because awareness is power. And today, that power becomes yours. The moment you decide to open your eyes to manipulation, something incredible happens. The fog begins to lift. You start to see how people's words, actions, and emotions are not always aligned. You notice how flattery is used to lower your defenses, how guilt is disguised as love, and how control often hides behind the illusion of care. You begin to realize that not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you, and not everyone who criticizes you is against you. This realization is painful at first, but it's also liberating, because clarity, no matter how uncomfortable, is always more powerful than illusion. Psychology teaches that manipulation thrives on emotional blindness. When you crave approval, when you fear rejection, when you're desperate to be understood, you become easy to influence. Manipulators sense your emotional needs like predators sense weakness. They feed you exactly what you want to hear until your happiness depends on their validation. That's how control begins. But the antidote is awareness, the courage to question everything that doesn't feel aligned with your truth. When you pause before reacting, when you observe instead of absorbing, you regain control over your mind. Your greatest defense is emotional stability. A calm mind cannot be manipulated. When you learn to manage your emotions, to breathe instead of react, to question instead of assume, you stop being an easy target. Emotional control isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's choosing to understand your triggers so others can't use them against you. Every manipulator depends on your confusion, your rush to explain, your fear of being misunderstood. But when you no longer chase understanding from those who twist your words, you become untouchable. Think about it. How many times have you apologized just to end an argument you didn't start? How often have you said it's fine when it wasn't, just to avoid tension? That's the silent erosion of your boundaries. Manipulators thrive in those moments when you silence your discomfort to maintain harmony. But true peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of self-respect. Every time you betray your truth for temporary calm, you strengthen their control. But every time you honor your feelings, even when it's uncomfortable, you reclaim your strength. There's a deep power in learning to pause, to say, "Let me think about that." To give yourself space before you answer, before you agree, before you commit. Manipulation only works when you react quickly, emotionally, without reflection. Slowing down breaks their rhythm. It shifts the power back to you. Suddenly, they can't predict you. They can't read your emotions or rush your choices. That stillness becomes your shield, silent, steady, and unshakable. And as you begin to live this way, you'll notice a change. You stop feeling drained after conversations. You stop doubting yourself every time someone disagrees with you. You start trusting your own perception again. This is the beginning of inner mastery, the point where manipulation loses its grip because you've stopped participating in it. Your awareness, your calm, your refusal to be rushed, these are not weaknesses. They are signs of strength. They are proof that you're no longer living on emotional autopilot. The more you understand yourself, the less anyone can use you. You don't need to fight manipulation, you only need to see it. Because once you do, it collapses under its own weight. The truth has a quiet power, and when you stand in it, no one can move you. Strength begins with boundaries. Not walls built from fear, but gates built from self-respect. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about keeping your peace in. They define where you end and where someone else begins. Without them, manipulation seeps in quietly, disguised as love, loyalty, or obligation. But when you have clear boundaries, you stop giving unearned access to your emotions, your time, and your energy. You stop being pulled into other people's storms and start standing firmly in your calm. Many people fear boundaries because they associate them with rejection or loss. They worry that saying no means losing connection. But the truth is, boundaries do not destroy relationships. They reveal them. The people who truly value you will respect your limits. The ones who benefit from your lack of them will resist. That resistance is clarity. It shows you who's around you for genuine connection and who's there for control. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a declaration that your well-being matters. And when you honor that, you teach others how to treat you. Psychologically, manipulators test your boundaries from the beginning. They push small limits to see how far they can go. They may ask for just one more favor, make you feel guilty for needing space, or praise you for being so understanding. It sounds harmless at first, but these are rehearsals for control. Every time you compromise your comfort to please them, they learn what buttons to press. But the moment you say, "That doesn't work for me," the dynamic shifts. You take back your authority. You remind them, and yourself, that your life belongs to you. Boundaries are also emotional armor. They protect your empathy from being exploited. Because manipulators often target kind-hearted people, they rely on your compassion, your desire to help, your guilt for saying no. But compassion without boundaries becomes self-destruction. It drains you until you have nothing left to give. Real strength is not in giving endlessly. It's in giving wisely. It's knowing that protecting your energy allows you to give from abundance, not exhaustion. When you guard your peace, your kindness becomes sustainable, your focus becomes clear, and your confidence begins to grow. You'll notice something powerful when you start setting boundaries. Silence. The wrong people will step back. They'll call you distant, cold, or difficult. But don't mistake that silence for loss. It's space being cleared for better connections. It's proof that your energy is recalibrating toward alignment. The ones meant to stay will adapt, respect, and grow with you. The ones meant to leave will reveal their intentions quickly. That's not rejection, that's revelation. And through this process, you'll begin to feel lighter. The constant tension in your chest, the second guessing after every conversation, the exhaustion from always pleasing others, it all begins to fade. You start breathing deeper, thinking clearer, walking taller. You stop apologizing for protecting your boundaries because you finally understand they are not barriers to love. They are the foundation of it. This is how inner power grows, not from shouting louder or fighting harder, but from quietly choosing yourself again and again, from no longer trading your peace for acceptance, from realizing that protecting your energy is not a sign of hardness, it's an act of wisdom. Because once you master the art of boundaries, you stop being controlled by others and start leading your own life with confidence, clarity, and peace that no one can take away. When you begin protecting your boundaries, you awaken something deeper, self-trust, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. It's one of the greatest shields against manipulation because manipulation thrives on your self-doubt. When you don't trust your perception, you hand your power to others. You look to them for answers, for approval, for direction. But when you trust yourself, you no longer need their permission to feel right, worthy, or capable. You stop questioning your instincts just because someone else disagrees. You begin to see that your intuition was never wrong. It was just ignored. Manipulators are skilled at planting seeds of doubt. They twist facts, minimize your feelings, or make you question your memory. It's a slow erosion of confidence. One moment you know what you saw, what you felt, what you decided. The next, you're uncertain. You start apologizing for things you didn't do, feeling guilty for things you didn't cause. That's how control takes root, by making you distrust your own perception. But the mind can be trained to see clearly again. Every time you pause and ask, what do I know to be true? You pull yourself back into reality. Truth isn't something they can give you. It's something you must stand in. Self-trust begins with small acts, listening to your instincts instead of suppressing them, making a choice that feels right even if others disapprove, speaking your truth calmly when it would be easier to stay silent. Each time you do, your confidence strengthens. You teach your mind that it's safe to trust your own wisdom. And when that trust grows, manipulation loses its grip. Because no matter how convincing someone's words are, you can sense when their energy doesn't align. You can feel the tension between what's said and what's real. Psychologically, this awareness is called cognitive grounding, the ability to anchor yourself in your own truth despite external pressure. It's what allows you to stay calm in chaos, certain in confusion, and firm when others try to make you bend. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or defensive. It means knowing that your clarity is enough. You don't need to argue endlessly or prove your perspective to anyone who refuses to understand. Self-trust allows you to walk away from manipulation, not with anger, but with peace. You'll start to notice that your relationships shift. Some people will respect your new clarity while others will resist it. Those who relied on your confusion will find your confidence uncomfortable. They'll call it arrogance, distance, or selfishness. But that's the price of awakening. Not everyone can meet the new version of you, and that's okay. Growth demands shedding the old dynamics that no longer align with your truth. The more you trust yourself, the less approval you need. You no longer measure your worth by how others respond to you. You stop chasing validation and start creating direction. That's what true freedom feels like. Not needing to be understood to stand firm in who you are. It's the peace that comes from knowing your perception, your feelings, and your intuition are valid. That's where manipulation ends, not through confrontation, but through self-mastery. Because when you trust yourself deeply, you become unmovable. The noise fades, the confusion dissolves, and your decisions start coming from a place of power, not pressure. You no longer seek to control others or be controlled by them. You simply stand, calm and clear, in your truth. And that kind of strength can't be taken. It can only be built, one moment of courage at a time, once. You begin trusting yourself, your energy changes. You walk differently, you speak differently. People feel it before you say a word. That quiet certainty radiates strength, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that doesn't need to. This is the energy manipulators cannot stand because it cannot be swayed. It doesn't react to pressure, it doesn't crumble under guilt, and it doesn't chase approval. It simply stands rooted in truth. That energy comes from alignment, the state of living in harmony with what you believe, what you feel, and what you do. When your inner world and outer world finally match, your presence becomes powerful beyond words. Alignment begins when you stop betraying yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you fracture that alignment. Every time you hide your emotions to make others comfortable, you distance yourself from your truth. But when you choose honesty with yourself first, everything begins to realign. Your thoughts, your words, your actions start to move in the same direction. That's when peace returns. That's when confidence stops being something you try to show and becomes something you naturally are. Psychologically, alignment is the foundation of integrity. And integrity is unshakable. It's what allows you to stay calm when someone tries to twist your truth. It's what keeps you grounded when others project their insecurities onto you. When you live in alignment, no external voice can make you question your worth, because your validation comes from within. You no longer need to prove your value, you embody it. And that embodiment becomes your protection. The human mind craves coherence. When your actions contradict your beliefs, it creates inner tension, what psychology calls cognitive dissonance. Manipulators exploit that tension. They feed confusion to keep you off balance, because a confused mind is easy to control. But when you live in integrity, that confusion disappears. You can sense instantly when something or someone doesn't fit your values. You no longer feel torn between who you are and who you're expected to be. You become whole again. Living in alignment doesn't mean you'll never face conflict. It means you'll face it with clarity. You'll no longer react out of fear, but respond from strength. You'll recognize manipulation not as a personal attack, but as an invitation to stay centered. You'll see that you don't need to match anyone's energy. You only need to maintain your own, and that realization changes everything. Because the most powerful person in any room is not the loudest one, but the one who remains calm when everyone else loses balance. The beauty of alignment is that it simplifies life. You stop explaining yourself to those who refuse to understand. You stop overthinking every decision because you already know what aligns with your truth. You stop trying to fix people who enjoy chaos because you've chosen peace. That's the quiet revolution. Choosing to live by inner truth even when the world tries to pull you away from it. And as that alignment deepens, something profound happens. The people who used to intimidate you lose their power. The opinions that once crushed you become background noise. You stop reacting to manipulation because it no longer reaches you. Your energy doesn't match its frequency anymore. You rise above it effortlessly. That is true mastery, not fighting the darkness, but standing so firmly in your light that it cannot touch you. This is where real freedom lives, in the quiet alignment between who you are and how you live. When every thought, word, and action reflects truth, manipulation has nowhere to hide. You become untouchable, not because you resist the world, but because you are finally in harmony with yourself. When you reach alignment, silence becomes your ally. You no longer rush to explain, defend, or justify. You realize that your peace doesn't require validation. The need to be understood fades, replaced by a deep knowing that truth stands on its own. Manipulators feed on reactions. They thrive when you engage emotionally, when you try to prove your point, when you let them pull you into their chaos. But silence disarms them. It's not weakness, it's mastery. It's the calm refusal to play a game that only exists to drain your energy. Psychologically, silence activates power. When you don't react immediately, your brain moves from emotion to awareness. You stop operating from instinct and start operating from clarity. The manipulator expects resistance, argument, or apology. When none comes, their strategy collapses. Silence breaks their rhythm. It forces them to confront their own emptiness because you no longer supply the attention they crave. You shift from being controlled to being in control, not through force, but through stillness. This silence is not passive. It's deeply intentional. It's the space where you breathe before responding, where you watch, observe, and understand without absorbing. You see the game for what it is, and choose not to participate. You don't need to win the argument because you've already won the moment you decided not to engage. Silence doesn't mean indifference, it means wisdom. It's the quiet recognition that peace is more valuable than being right. Manipulators fear silence because it mirrors them back to themselves. They can't twist your words when you say nothing. They can't guilt you when you refuse to respond. They can't control your emotions when you've learned to stay grounded. This isn't coldness, it's emotional maturity. It's knowing that not every attack deserves a defense. It's the power of restraint in a world addicted to reaction. And the more you practice it, the stronger you become. There's immense strength in doing nothing when provoked. It doesn't mean you're weak or uncertain. It means you're choosing peace over chaos. Every unreacted moment is energy saved, clarity preserved, dignity protected. You stop handing over your power to those who seek to drain it. The world will try to convince you that silence is surrender, but the wise know its strategy. Because silence speaks loudly. It says, I see through this and I will not participate. When your silence comes from awareness, it radiates confidence. You're no longer avoiding conflict. You're mastering control over yourself. You're training your mind to stay calm under pressure, your emotions to remain steady when provoked. That's true discipline. That's what inner warriors practice. Not fighting every battle, but mastering the art of stillness. In that stillness, truth reveals itself. Patterns become visible. And what once confused you becomes clear. Soon, you'll notice how silence transforms your interactions. Arguments that once escalated now dissolve. People who once controlled you start to lose influence. You realize you don't need to shout to be heard. Your calm presence speaks louder than any words could. The energy that was once scattered through reactions now fuels your clarity, your focus, your purpose. Silence becomes your sanctuary, the space where you regain power, perspective, and peace. It's where your intuition grows stronger and your confidence steadier. It's where manipulation fails to reach you because you've stepped out of the emotional battlefield. You've learned that true power doesn't chase attention. It commands respect through stillness. And when you master that, you don't just avoid manipulation, you transcend it. There comes a moment when you realize that silence alone is not enough. It must be paired with clarity of purpose, because when you know who you are and what you stand for, manipulation becomes powerless. The most dangerous weapon a manipulator has is your uncertainty. When you're unsure of your values, they can twist your emotions. When you don't know your direction, they can lead you astray. But when you are anchored in purpose, every attempt to sway you fails. You stop reacting to distractions because you have a mission that demands your focus. Purpose gives your silence strength. It turns stillness into intention. It reminds you that your energy is sacred, that not everything deserves your attention or emotional investment. Psychology calls this value-based living, aligning your daily choices with your deepest principles. When you live this way, decisions become easier. The noise of manipulation can't reach you because you're tuned to a higher frequency, the frequency of meaning. When you lack purpose, your mind becomes vulnerable. You start absorbing other people's opinions as your own. You become reactive instead of proactive, guided by moods instead of mission. Manipulators sense that void and fill it with their agenda. They tell you what to believe, how to feel, what to prioritize, until your life becomes a reflection of their control, not your calling. But the moment you define your why, everything shifts. Purpose filters out manipulation because it gives every choice a direction. If it doesn't align with your values, it no longer belongs in your life. Purpose doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't have to change the world. It only needs to change how you show up in it. It's the commitment to live consciously, to act with integrity, to build peace instead of chaos. When your actions match your intentions, you become magnetic. People feel your authenticity. You stop chasing approval and start attracting respect. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. You demonstrate it through consistency. Psychologically, purpose satisfies one of the deepest human needs, significance. We all want to feel that our lives matter. Manipulators exploit that desire by offering conditional validation. They make you feel significant only when you serve their needs. But real purpose breaks that dependency. It gives you unconditional significance. You find meaning not in their approval, but in your contribution. You stop asking, do they value me? And start asking, am I living my truth? That question becomes your compass. When you wake up with a clear sense of direction, distractions lose their power. You stop being reactive because you already know where you're headed. You no longer waste energy on gossip, arguments, or the opinions of those who misunderstand you. You begin to live intentionally, not emotionally. And that kind of focus is rare. It commands respect without demanding it. Every manipulator fears a person with purpose, because purpose cannot be bribed, guilted, or flattered. It doesn't bend under pressure. It walks with quiet confidence, fueled not by ego but by conviction. You become the kind of person who doesn't just avoid manipulation. You transform environments through clarity. Your energy inspires honesty in others because you lead by example. And as purpose deepens, you start seeing how everything aligns. Your silence, your self-trust, your boundaries, they all serve the same goal, to keep you in control of your inner world. Because when you live with purpose, you're no longer reacting to life. You're shaping it. You move with intention, speak with truth, and choose with awareness. And in that space of conscious living, no manipulation can survive. When you live with purpose, your presence begins to communicate before your words ever do. People can sense your strength, not because you speak louder, but because your energy carries certainty. This is the kind of presence that manipulative people cannot tolerate. It exposes them without confrontation. They rely on confusion and emotional imbalance, but when you radiate clarity, their influence fades. You become a mirror that reflects truth, and truth makes every hidden motive visible. That's why inner peace is such a powerful force. It reveals what chaos tries to hide. Inner peace is not a passive state. It's the result of discipline, the daily choice to remain centered when the world pulls at your emotions. It's not found in isolation, but in self-mastery. Manipulation cannot exist in the presence of someone who controls their inner world, because manipulation thrives on emotional reaction, and peace removes that fuel. When you are calm, you become unreadable. You take away the manipulator's power to predict your behavior. You stop being a participant in their emotional games. You observe, understand, and respond from clarity, not from fear. This is what mental strength truly is. Not coldness, but calm focus. It's the ability to experience emotion without being ruled by it, to listen without absorbing, to feel without losing balance. It's emotional intelligence in action, the balance between empathy and detachment. When you master this, you can remain kind without being controlled, compassionate without being consumed. Peace allows you to connect deeply without losing yourself in the process. Psychologically, peace activates higher reasoning. When your nervous system is calm, your brain accesses clarity, logic, and creativity. You see patterns you couldn't see before. You recognize manipulation not by its words, but by its energy. You begin to notice inconsistencies in tone, intention, and timing. And instead of reacting, you pause. That sacred pause where awareness grows and control returns. The manipulator may try to provoke you, but your calmness becomes your shield. It frustrates them, because their control depends on your chaos. When you no longer respond to their triggers, their tactics lose meaning. Maintaining peace doesn't mean you don't feel anger or pain. It means you process those emotions without letting them define you. You learn to release what doesn't belong, instead of holding it until it poisons your spirit. You stop replaying old conversations or analyzing others' motives. You choose your focus carefully because you understand that attention is energy, and energy is your most valuable currency. Peace becomes your currency of power because what you give attention to grows. This way of living doesn't make you distant, it makes you intentional. You stop chasing emotional highs and lows. You stop letting other people's moods dictate your day. You wake up steady, grounded in who you are, unbothered by external noise. That doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you've built the strength to face it with grace. The manipulative person can no longer find entry because peace closes every emotional door they used to walk through, and that peace starts changing everything around you. People feel safer in your presence. Your decisions become sharper. Your relationships deepen in honesty. You no longer seek drama because peace feels more rewarding than attention. You begin to understand that your calm is not emptiness. It's power refined. The kind of power that doesn't dominate, but illuminates. Because in a world addicted to chaos, peace is the loudest statement you can make. It says, without words, that you are free, and that no one can disturb what you have mastered within. When peace becomes your foundation, awareness expands. You start noticing how much of life operates through influence, subtle, invisible forces that try to guide your thoughts, shape your opinions, and control your emotions. It's not just people who manipulate. Sometimes it's environments, habits, or even your own unexamined beliefs. The moment you become conscious of these influences, you begin to reclaim your mind. Because the most powerful form of manipulation isn't external, it's internal. It's the voice that tells you you're not enough, the fear that keeps you silent, the self-doubt that stops you from growing. That voice doesn't belong to you. It was planted by years of conditioning, repetition, and pressure to conform. Awareness is how you remove it, one thought at a time. The human mind is suggestible. It absorbs patterns, ideas, and emotional cues from everything around it. Manipulators understand this. They don't just speak to your mind. They speak to your emotions. They know that feelings shape perception faster than facts. When they can make you feel fear, guilt, or shame, they control your reality. But awareness interrupts that process. It allows you to pause before emotion becomes reaction. You begin to see the technique behind the trigger. You start recognizing when someone is appealing to your empathy just to gain control, when flattery is being used as a tool, or when guilt is designed to silence your boundaries. Awareness exposes manipulation in real time. This awareness also turns inward. You start observing how your own mind can deceive you, how fear disguises itself as caution, how comfort pretends to be peace, how overthinking steals your confidence. The same clarity that protects you from external manipulation also frees you from internal sabotage. When you catch your own limiting thoughts and ask, "Who taught me this?" you start breaking invisible chains. You realize that not every belief you hold belongs to you. Some were given to you to keep you small. But when you question them, they lose power. Awareness isn't rebellion, it's liberation. Psychologically, awareness shifts you from being reactive to being conscious. It moves you from the lower mind, the part that survives, to the higher mind, the part that creates. You stop being the puppet of circumstances and become the author of your reality. You see how everything is connected, your thoughts, your emotions, your choices. When you control one, you influence them all. That's why manipulators lose their grip on people who practice self-awareness. There's nothing left to exploit. You're too observant to be deceived, too grounded to be moved by illusion. The beautiful thing about awareness is that it brings compassion, not bitterness. You no longer hate those who try to manipulate you, you simply understand them. You see that manipulation comes from weakness, from a lack of inner peace. People control others when they can't control themselves. That understanding brings you freedom. It stops you from carrying resentment. You stop reacting to pain and start learning from it. When awareness and peace merge, you begin living consciously, awake, alert, and untouchable. You see the games, but you no longer need to play them. You feel emotions, but you no longer drown in them. You move through life with clarity, not confusion. And that clarity becomes your superpower. It allows you to see manipulation as what it truly is. A desperate attempt to control what can no longer be controlled, because a mind that is aware cannot be deceived, and a soul that is awake cannot